Hello, friends. I hope you are all doing well. So, welcome to part one of my written study of Revelation 18. I would recommend that if you have not watched the videos or read the chapter Revelation 17 regarding the imagery, I would not. Well, maybe. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I would highly recommend reviewing the Revelation 17 videos and/or chapter writing before going through this video, because there's going to be reference material that I'm going to re-explain very minimally, but we're going to take for granted that you've been following the sequence of events through. And so what some of this will be reintroducing is not going to be as detailed as it was in the prior chapter. So if this is new, if you're new to my work, I would recommend going through the Revelation 17 stuff first. But if you haven't done that and you're here anyway, welcome to you. This is the part one, and there'll probably be one more part after this, potentially two, to complete the written study of Revelation 18. As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about something else I need to include, but obviously I'm not done with it. It's just a work in progress, and as I always note, up until the time where I actually put it out there for all y'all, it's subject to change. Hopefully it won't change much, but I do go through this as a help to me to proofread also, to make sure that it flows and that it makes sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then that's not really helpful. But here we are to go through the first part of this. So Revelation 18, the destruction of Babylon the Great. I'm going to say that there's probably only one part of this that might come as something that isn't generally known. I mean, if you've been following my work, you know that Babylon is Babylon. I realize that there are Christians out there who have varying interpretations of what Babylon is. Babylon is Babylon. So that's why I said if you are unfamiliar with my work and you think Babylon is something other than Babylon, then I would recommend not starting here, because there's a whole bunch of context that probably is missing, and I would suggest studying other parts of Revelation, specifically chapter 14 and chapter 17, before venturing here. However, I'm going to assume a base level of understanding and agreement, and so we can proceed. But this is the destruction of Babylon the Great. And like I said, as I sit here, I know that I need to include Isaiah 13 and potentially Jeremiah 51 and 52. I am very unfamiliar with Jeremiah 51 and 52, other than I know that it's about the destruction of Babylon. Jeremiah is probably the prophet that I am least familiar with out of all of them, but I do know that it is in there, and Isaiah 13 I'm quite familiar with, so I know that we will be adding some of that in, but it's not in here yet, but it will be forthcoming. Other than that, let's go. At the end of both Revelation 16 and Revelation 17, we learned the city that will become the headquarters of the beast during the second half of Daniel's 70th week, Babylon the Great, will be destroyed. Moreover, we learn that it will be destroyed by the beast and the 10 kings because they come to hate it, and most importantly, because God will put it in their heart to do so to fulfill his will. Revelation 16:19b, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. That is tied to the pouring out of vial 7 as legitimately the last thing that happens on earth before Jesus Christ returns at the second coming. And Revelation 17:11, the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate and naked, shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, for God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God should be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. The sole purpose of Revelation 18 is to show the destruction of Babylon the Great and the world's response to it. Sorry about that. That was my son. So I'm resuming the video after a half hour. The sole purpose of Revelation 18 is to show the destruction of Babylon the Great and the world's response to it. It's important to note that the destruction of this city will represent the avenging of the blood of the martyrs from seal 5. In fact, this avenging provides the segue from Revelation 18 to Revelation 19, where the inhabitants of heaven are shown rejoicing over this event. So Revelation 6:9, when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwelt on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. So the avenging of that is seen in Revelation 18:20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And Revelation 19:1, and after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Alleluia, salvation and glory, honor, power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments, for he hath avenged the great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. We will most certainly discuss this avenging more as we make our way through this chapter and the next. For now, let us see the destruction of Babylon the Great. So Revelation 18:1. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So this is the angel that flew through the midst of the heaven in Revelation 14. We'll get to that. We learned much about the context of verse 3 above from our discussion of Revelation 17, and that was, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So that was discussed in the previous chapter. However, verse 2 refers to language we saw back in our study of Revelation 14. And verse 2 says, He cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now this move, it was in that chapter, Revelation 14. We saw the first reference to Babylon being reestablished in the end times. This move from Jerusalem to Babylon was marked by the second angel, which will fly through the midst of the heaven in Revelation 14 at the midpoint of the 70th week. Babylon is declared fallen at the time when it will be reestablished. Revelation 14:8. There followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now this reestablishment of Babylon will also be the fulfillment of Zechariah 5. Note that the flying roll is a reference to the scroll that we saw being read from in previous chapters of Revelation. The same scroll that Ezekiel told us contains lamentations and mourning and woe. That the curse will go over the whole of the earth is a reference to the vials which are poured over the whole of the earth, in contrast to the trumpets, which impacted only 1/3 of their intended targets. Thus, the relationship of Zechariah 5 is to the relationship of Zechariah 5 to the vial judgments necessarily limits the reestablishment of Babylon to the second half of the 70th week. And this is here I have this highlighted and bolded. This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. That's language that ties this to the vial judgments, which is what I was just explaining in the previous chapter. So if it goes over the whole of the earth, that's a reference to the vials, not the trumpets, which are impacting 1/3 of their targets. So Zechariah 5:1. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. That's the scroll that's being read from in Revelation. He said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I said, I see a flying roll. Then he said unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. Remember the flying roll, the scroll from Ezekiel 2 and 3, contains lamentations and mourning and woe. The curse, yes. Then the angel that talked with me went forth, and he said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes, and see what this is that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, This is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, Moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. He said, This is wickedness. He cast it in the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had the wings like the wings of a stork. And they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, Whither do these bear the ephah? He said unto me, To build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. Yes, the unclean and hateful birds pictured in Zechariah 5. The women with the appearance of storks will reestablish the wicked woman upon her own base in the land of Shinar. There she will stay for the duration of the beast's 42 months to rule. Eventually she will be destroyed. The secondary reference to her being fallen comes from Isaiah 21, verse 9. Behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen, and he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. Indeed, Babylon represents everything that stands against God. This is the reason she will be destroyed. However, before we get to her destruction, we need to continue addressing her reestablishment, as well as God's admonishment. Hold on. Sorry, I had to go change something before I forgot about it. Indeed, Babylon represents everything that stands against God. This is the reason she will be destroyed. However, before we get to her destruction, we need to continue addressing her reestablishment, as well as God's admonition for Israel to have nothing to do with her. Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. To accurately understand the intention of the verses above, we need to return to the contrast that was drawn in our study of Revelation 17 between Babylon, the harlot, and Jerusalem, the bride. And I'm actually going to, we'll say Zion, Jerusalem, which is the bride. We were given several contrasting points to illustrate the polar opposite nature of these cities and their association with either redemption or damnation. And I'll take that out. In addition to being pictured as sitting upon many waters, the woman was also said to be sitting upon the beast as well as upon 7 mountains. And again, this is from Revelation 17. The city of Babylon was not set on 7 literal mountains. However, Revelation 17 describes Babylon as a woman harlot whore who commits fornication and who is set upon 7 mountains for the purpose of contrasting it with New Jerusalem, which is also set upon a mountain, but is represented as a bride. The latter is holy, while the former is absolutely not. And this was in Revelation 17:4 and Revelation 21. So this is text that I brought over from the Revelation 17 study to show you the description of the woman Babylon, the city, which is set against God, and the contrast that New Jerusalem, which is the bride, the city of God, it represents, Revelation 21. So Revelation 17:4, this is Babylon. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Contrast to Revelation 21:10, he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. So you have Babylon the Great and the great city, the holy Jerusalem. So they're both great, but they're antithesis of one another. So Babylon was set on 7 mountains, and Jerusalem is set on 1, which is Mount Zion. And then you have the woman being described as being decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, and that's all over the description of New Jerusalem. So they're very much contrasts of one another. And it's important to understand that the imagery given of Babylon is to depict it as the polar opposite of Jerusalem. It is everything that Jerusalem is not, or Jerusalem is everything that Babylon is not, or however you want to say that. But Revelation 21:18, the building of the wall of it was jasper, talking about the holy city Jerusalem. The city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. The foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third a chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprasus, the 11th a jacinth, the 12th an amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, and every gate was of 1 pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. In Revelation 18, we have another stark contrast between these two cities, but which relates to the double portion. The single portion would be the lot of inheritance due any male child of a father. The double portion would represent greater favor given either to the firstborn or to the one upon which favor was intended to fall. The instruction for this is given in Deuteronomy. So Deuteronomy 21:15. If a man have 2 wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, if the firstborn son be of hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he hath. For he is the beginning of his strength, the right of the firstborn is his. Babylon is the mother of harlots. All religious abominations have flowed from her throughout the ages. Yet they will come home to roost upon their original founding spot. For this we recognize Babylon as the firstborn, and to her is owed double. When Jesus came the first time, Joel called him the former rain given moderately. This means that Jesus, a Jew, was born to Israel for the purpose of ministering to Israel and eventually redeeming Israel. Thus Israel is the firstborn. To her, he brought a double portion. This is in Zechariah 9. Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, and upon the colt the foal of an ass. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, the horse from Jerusalem. The battle bow shall be cut off. And he shall speak peace unto the heathen. And his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. As for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. Turn ye to the stronghold, ye prisoners of hope. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto thee. When I have bent Judah for me, filled the bow with Ephraim, and raised up thy sons, O Zion, against thy sons, O Greece, and made thee as a sword of a mighty man. The attempted rendering of the double portion to Israel in Jerusalem and upon Mount Zion, God's holy mountain, was demonstrated by the fact that he rode in with 2 donkeys. Even so, Israel rejected him. The kingdom offering was taken off of the table at that time and delayed to his second coming. When Jesus returns the second time, it will again be with a double portion for Israel, the firstborn. It will again be with a double portion, for Israel is the firstborn. And this is actually the point of Isaiah 61. Read, Heather. Isaiah 61:3. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion. So again, Zion is God's holy mountain, contrasted with the 7 mountains upon which Babylon sat. So it's always going to be a contrast between the Mount Zion, God's holy mount, and the 7 mountains upon which the woman sitteth, Babylon. It's always going to be a difference between Jerusalem and Babylon, contrasting that which is holy with that which is evil. So this is all about contrasts in Revelation 17 and 18. Hopefully that point is understood by now. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. Actually, I'm going to add the first 2 verses of this chapter. So this is actually the whole chapter of Isaiah 61, and I figure people will recognize it more readily and understand what it's talking about more readily off the bat if I include the first 2 verses. It's talking about kingdom, the second coming of Jesus Christ, and the offering of kingdom to Israel. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old wastes, they shall raise up the former desolations, they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. For your shame ye shall have double. So this is talking about the double portion to be given to Israel upon the redemption offered by Jesus Christ at his physical return, second coming. For your shame ye shall have double, and for confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in the land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. Their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, and my soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garment of salvation, he hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with jewels. For as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations. Yes, when Jesus returns, he will appoint to those who mourn in Zion double, giving them beauty to replace ashes, the oil of joy to replace their mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of their heaviness. However, the opposite is true of the double he will render to Babylon. They will perish in their mourning and heaviness, viewing the ashes of the burning of the city just before Jesus returns to destroy them all with fire. Revelation 18:6. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I said a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. The admonition given to come out of her, my people, is not a reference to the church. It could not possibly be, because this is the second half of the 70th week admonition. Rather, it is an admonition to Israel. Jesus is going to return at the second coming. One will either be rewarded double along with Babylon and utterly destroyed from the earth, or rewarded double in Jerusalem in a remade heavens and earth in the kingdom for their faith. Recall that the angel who flies through the midst of the heaven in Revelation 14, warning that Babylon is fallen, is the second angel in that chapter. The first preaches the everlasting gospel, which tells the world to fear God and worship Jesus. This is akin to the admonition to come out of the religious system that stands against God and acknowledge and believe on his Son. Psalm 2 puts it like this: Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. While we know that there will be a remnant of Israel who flees to the wilderness, we also know there will be many more who do not. This is the reference that the angel is making in Revelation 18. It regards the events of the midpoint of the 70th week and how they pertain to Israel. They will have to make the immediate choice amidst trumpet 7 to worship Jesus or worship the beast. That equates to choosing between Jerusalem and Babylon. Will Israel choose the double portion rendered to them in the kingdom by believing on the Lord Jesus Christ to be saved? Or will they choose the double portion rendered to Babylon and continue in their unbelief? Revelation 18:4. I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. This is reminiscent of the same thing Paul said to the church in Ephesians 5. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Salvation is always an individual choice. While the remnant will be saved corporately at the conclusion of the 70th week, for they will all call upon his name with one accord, each person within the 70th week will have to make their own choice. The language in these verses simply presents the contrast between Jerusalem and Babylon, the city of God versus the city set against God. This of God set against the and the choice available to the Jews at that point in time. And the choice will be imperative for survival, for Babylon is to be judged. Revelation 18:9. The kings of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. This is the 1 hour the 10 kings give their power to the beast and burn the whore with fire. From Revelation 17:12, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate, naked, shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire, for God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. The world shall be immeasurably upset by this. And this is where I end. We'll pick up from here in the next video. Revelation 18:11. All the merchants and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious woods and of brass and iron, marble, cinnamon, odors, ointments, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, beasts, sheep, horses, chariots, slaves, and souls of men. And the fruit that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? They cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. So when we reconvene, we'll talk about potentially Jeremiah 51 and 52. I'm not sure whether I'll bring those in or not because I have to see if it's worth doing. But we'll definitely talk about the relationship of the destruction of Babylon, timing-wise, the proximity to the second coming from Isaiah 13. Makes it very clear in that chapter. But that's where we're at. So as always, if you have questions, comments, feedback, let me know. But this is part 1, so I'll see you guys later.